All those in favor say,
All those in favor, oh, that one.
yeah, that one.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anyone that would like to make public comment?
Okay, there you,
Pardon me?
there you go. No, I just started it.
Oh, okay. Any public comment? Going once, twice? Okay. So our first item on the agenda is a discussion on the annual review of the SDCs as recommended by adopted methodology. And is Bruce
Yes,
going to?
yes. And SDCs are system development charges. And that is when a new property comes in and is adding to the water system, demand sewer system, et cetera. We'll pay an SDC. But the Cannon Beach City Code, section 3.16.040 requires that the city council review the system development charges or SDCs in January of each year. However, because the current SDCs have only been in place since August 1st of 2022, only 5 months, staff does not think that we've collected enough data to make any decisions. We recommend that the subject be rescheduled for January 2024 workshop for consideration of additional data and a July 1st implementation date. And I would have to ask Ashley, because we don't think that we need to take any actions, but do we need to bring something back possibly to the February meeting that says we looked at this, but we decided to hold off? Or is just the fact that we had this discussion at this meeting adequate to meet our code?
I believe that you'd have to bring something back. I think the safest route would be for you to bring something back in February.
All right, just a resolution?
Hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that's what we would recommend.
Can I ask you a question? Well, I don't understand why we don't do the January increase for this, the inflation part of it. Because I know you can't go over 5%. I know that you have to look at that engineering index to see, you know, what the rate of inflation is for new construction, but it seems that it's a great way to gain revenues for needed, you know, for the things, for those issues in the city. And because we were so, you know, the meeting, I believe it's 15 months since the decision was actually made to do the increase. I don't see why we just don't do it. Why don't we do at least the inflation, you know, maybe not do a full review, but at least do the inflation part of it. Look up what the index says it is, and then which is probably more than 5%, but at this point, I don't know. I'm not an engineer or an economist, but I'm just saying it seems that we could get more revenue for the city that way.
No, you're absolutely correct. I think the way I was looking at it is that we haven't even had these in place for a year. And so I don't think we're losing that much on it. And just to be on the conservative side, just to go ahead and say, well, let's go ahead and get, 15 months of knowing how much, because there's also, let me see, the value of the SDCs relates to, how much is collected, how much can be applied to the cost of the projects. And like I say, with 5 months, we don't have a lot of history of either one. It's totally possible for the staff, for council to direct us to go back and then check what the ENR numbers, engineering news record number would be, and bring you calculations that would show what the cost would be, or what the cost increase would be.
Yeah, I would feel really much more comfortable if you did that, just because, I mean, it's supposed to be done every January, and I don't know why it wasn't done before or what the history of it is, except for I did sit in on when the consultant came in, and he seemed to he was really encouraging us to raise our SDCs. And even now, after the raise, we still are fairly low, at least in the I tried looking up some other cities like Seaside. I was not successful. but I couldn't find it. I don't know why. But there are some what I guess are considered comparable cities, and we're way down, we're like fourth or, second from the bottom. Just Warrington was the only one that was below us.
Yeah.
And I just think that anything that would legally generate, as long as it's not like a huge hassle and it would take hours of staff time. I think if we're just checking the index, and seeing what the rate of inflation is and going with the top, which is 5%,
Mhm.
if we can. It
Yeah.
would be well worth our while financially.
Yeah, and that is financially, that is the most conservative approach we can take.
Yeah.
It's whatever council direction provides.
One other thought, with the consideration of not delaying until January 2024 is, we took nothing for transportation expenses because at that time we did not have an approved transportation system plan. And now we do. And we're really deciding a few transportation system plan priorities away from being able to justify those.
Mhm.
So maybe there's some compromise that we can get that far into the process. And maybe I'm overestimating our capacity to get to that stage, but that was another thought that maybe we don't want to wait another year.
And let us go back and look at how much has been collected. I don't think there's been that many projects that would have applied to this. Find out how much money has been collected, how much we're talking about, and then what the requirements would be for us to meet before we started with the transportation SDCs.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Yep. And
Can I? Oh,
please.
this is the first time that we've charged SDCs for parks. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Well, I think that's fantastic, that expanding green space and recreation areas as we lose our undeveloped lots is fantastic. So I don't know what Ecola Court was referred to on page 19 of Exhibit A.
You're in Ecola Court.
I don't see that.
I don't know. I think that might be Monica Way. Is that Monica, is that up by,
Anybody know, is Ecola Court the small, like a pocket park over by the school, across the street, at the end of the walkway?
It's called,
The streets right back.
It's a Cola Creek Park.
that's it.
The roundabout three right here.
Yeah.
At City Hall.
also maybe the trail.
That's what I'm wondering if it's,
It's right.
oh, it's right here. Can you guys see it?
Oh, walk it every day.
So it is the trail. Okay.
It is that trail.
Oh, this is
Gower.
the one that's between Gower and Harrison, West Harrison, that little between
Was it right out here?
Evergreen right here.
Oh, it's evergreen, you said.
So the bike trail, the old bike trail.
yeah, Waker.
Oh, Wafer, that way,
That one.
that way.
Oh,
Oh, it's Spruce Court.
Mhm.
Bring the surf shop.
so it's essentially the beach access area there. So we got a project planned for that.
Send the parks project.
I'm so observant. I take my dog there a couple times a week.
I never knew it as Ecola Court, so.
I'm sorry, Karen, I didn't mean to speak over you.
It was part of the parks master plan.
So how much staff time is our request going to take?
This is doable.
Okay.
Doable.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I tend to agree with the staff's recommendation that by January 2024, we will have had more data to be able to analyze. And if my assessment is incorrect, please tell me, but Way the system development fees are added to is with a new building project.
Yes, is it or an expansion?
For SDC.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's for, I think, additional, whatever additional usage of system. So yeah, if you're gonna increase the.
Certain types of remodels would trigger it.
if you have a 1 bedroom and you make it a 3 bedroom, there'll be not the full 3 bedroom charge, but a
I
2.
guess my point is that the pot's going to grow slowly. It's not like this is going to be a huge cash cow.
Correct.
So
But it's gonna grow.
as long as there is expansion.
Yeah.
Let us provide the numbers and we'll get a better idea on what it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's a good place that we've landed now, for sure. So,
and I'm glad to see that council is looking to keep up with the revenues and not let inflation go this way and our revenue go this way. So
Yep.
it's good.
How about that? Okay, everyone okay? Nancy?
Mhm.
Okay, fine.
It needs to be brought back to the meeting in February.
So next we have a discussion on the prepared food sales tax exemption language and farm and market vendors.
Yes. Sorry, I gotta find it. Yeah, there are two conversations here.
Let's take them one by one.
Yeah, they will. The issue specifically addressed at a previous conversation was that the question that was raised as to whether the American Legion continue to have to collect the PFT for weekly, monthly, or annual events that some thought should be exempt. There are several reasons mentioned, for example, how the Legion uses the money for charity, and that it's mostly locals that eat there. But those were all brought up, but it may not be the criteria that we need to exempt a single organization from collecting the PFT without allowing other organizations to be able to come forward and make similar claims. There is some information that we'd asked for just a short time ago, and we don't have it. And I think that I'd like to ask for us to take this up again a little bit later, because the question is, does the charge, the reason that, say, the auxiliary might be charged something or the sons of might be charged something, we were doing it under the Legion. And the question came up, is it the Legion, the fact that they're at the Legion, or is it possible that they actually have independent charters and they all kind of are housed at the Legion, but they're really independent organizations? That may make a difference. And I don't have that answer right now as to whether or not they are in fact independent, or if that might make any kind of a difference for that. So that was kind of our thought process. It's the Legion. And it may not be that simple. So I would like to have that answer before we have a further discussion on it.
I also wondered if Ashley or somebody had a chance to call the other two cities.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, she did. She did have some conversations with Ashland and
Yachats.
Gahats. I couldn't remember that weekend.
Ashley?
Yeah, good evening, City Council. Ashley Driscoll, City Attorney's Office. So unfortunately, Yachats did not call or email me back, so I was not able to report on how they handled the situation. I did finally get a hold of the city of Ashland and talk to them both about their farmers market and about how they interpret the word temporary in the exemption that you have in your staff report. I'm just going to read it really quickly. The exemption is food purchased from nonprofit organizations or service clubs at temporary restaurants, including food stands, booths, street concessions, and similar type operations. City of Ashland has a very, very similar, if not exact same exemption in their city code, because we borrowed very heavily from the Ashland city code when we did our prepared food tax. So I didn't get the impression through my conversations with them that they have this issue of a for-profit organization having a monthly, weekly, or even, by twice annually, is that semi-annually, on a semi-annual basis. But generally speaking, the impression I got from the city of Ashland is that they erred on the side of imposing the tax. So when I asked them about their farmers market, they referred me to this exemption and told me that if they did not meet the letter of this exemption, that they imposed the tax on their customers. So the answer was not, your question about temporary restaurants was not answered through the city of Ashland, and Yachats did not get back to me. Your question about farmers markets was answered in Ashland. As I said, they do impose the prepared food tax on customers at their farmers markets if the vendor is not a nonprofit.
And I mentioned in the report, I think it's the farmer's market is a different issue, I think, than the Legion. It's more of a business decision. Should we be imposing a tax on somebody that we might have less people coming to our event? So that's really separate, and I think we can get to that one when we address the Legion issue.
So that being said, yep.
I'm a little confused in terms of the question involving the Legion. What was it you found out about Ashland? If there was anything comparable to what we do here, did they have anything comparable, and what was the answer?
So no, they did not have anything comparable. When I asked the question about how they addressed, restaurants that were monthly, quarterly, or semi-annually, they referred me back to this language and essentially said that they narrowly interpreted this exemption. So my impression was, if faced with this situation, the city of Ashland would impose the tax on the customers.
You did say that theirs reads nonprofits operating temporary restaurants.
It's very, very similar language. Yes. And I can pull it up. Just 1 second.
Everybody at home is doing this to their monitor.
Yeah,
So
I'm
their
reading ours.
so their exemption says that they exempt essentially food sold in temporary restaurants, including food stands, booths, street concessions, and similar type operations operated by nonprofit organizations or service club. So you have to be both temporary and a nonprofit in order to avoid having to collect and remit the tax. And they do impose the tax on customers at the farmers market.
And so the issue here is whether it's I thought was the definition of temporary.
Well, I think we're talking about two different things. We're talking about the farmer's market versus Legion. Legion's not temporary.
Right.
Well,
think-
that's the question.
Is it
So if I
temporary?
may, I think for our perspective, what we need is an understanding of how council interprets the word temporary. Can a restaurant be temporary if they serve customers monthly? Can they be temporary if they serve customers quarterly? So typically in an employment context, when we're talking about temporary employees, we then define that term, employee working less than 1,600 hours in a calendar year. So a similar way to address that is that define temporary as a restaurant that operates less than 4 times a year or, twice a year, whatever the council would think would be fair.
But the Legion offers a weekly,
It's weekly.
it's weekly. And sometimes more than weekly.
But then
Right.
do the people that at the hamburger feed, are those paid staff that is doing the cooking or are they volunteers?
I think they're volunteers.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are
And
volunteers.
what should that enter into our decision?
I don't think it necessarily should. I think we need to watch trying to carve out an exception for a single nonprofit.
And that's not my intent, but
Yeah.
what I'm thinking of is in the world of nonprofits. Those people are volunteering their time to aid in raising funds for a nonprofit.
I would still say the same thing that I don't think we should be in the business of saying what's a good nonprofit and what's a bad nonprofit or what's a deserving nonprofit.
And that's
I think
not
that-
where, I wasn't going there either. I think it's different than a restaurant where all of the people involved in raising the money are compensated.
And I'm not sure what the situation is at the conference center.
That's the deal. I actually sent a question to
I'm a-
Ashley and Bruce about Cafe Do. Because that's another one I don't know that we've ever settled on.
I don't know that they're
Email.
directly compensated.
They sell in Seaside though. I don't know where they cook, but you pick up your food in Seaside from them.
Yeah, that was the question. They prepare it here. But at least in this particular instance, I'm not always, because sometimes you pick it up here as well. They prepare it and sometimes you pick it up here. But in this other instance, they prepare it here and then they take it over to Fellowship Church and then people pick it up there in Seaside. So I did ask that question. I haven't gotten an answer back yet.
I'm sorry, let me get you.
Ashley or Bruce.
Yeah.
Yeah. About that.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different, that's another subject. That's not the Legion.
Yeah, I think our conversation should probably be, do we want to exempt nonprofits or not want to exempt nonprofits?
Well,
When we get there, and maybe we don't need to have this conversation now, but
I'm okay with the exemption of the nonprofits if it fits the temporary exemption in our language. Am
So
I correct that that's there?
yes,
So you need to meet 2 criteria, not just one.
Right.
nonprofit and temporary, but we don't have a good definition or definite definition of temporary right now. So that's what we need to do is come up with what does temporary mean? So it's clear to everybody.
And then that's why I bring up the point, like Ashley said something about a temporary employee in so many hours. If they're volunteers, it doesn't
So
matter.
if you may, Mayor, if I may enter into the conversation. So I was bringing that up in terms of just defining temporary, how we define temporary in another context.
Right.
My implication was not about the employees. I think during this conversation, it's often easy to forget that the tax is actually on the customers and not the entity. So I
Right.
see what you mean about the employees. But again, the tax is passed through to the customers.
Right. So Bruce is going to find out if the Legion is one nonprofit or several with their Sons of American Legion.
Yes.
Legion, the Women's Auxiliary.
For example, is the Women's Auxiliary the Legion? Or is the Women's Auxiliary an organization that has some affiliation, but they use the kitchen and things like that for one of their fundraisers?
And how would that affect our decision?
Well, I think I had not considered that it's possible that each one of those is a separate entity.
Uh-huh.
And so it was the Legion, and they're serving the way that it works, because having so many of these events, they're serving food a lot. And so that's why that made sense. But if it's, you still have to deal with the temporary question, but there's some groups doing it weekly, some maybe less than that. And if it, is it a, like a food bank or something that's having an event at any location? So they're doing it there, but if the location is necessarily taxed for functions, should the food bank doing it once a year be taxed? Or once a week, or once every 6 months, or whatever? It was a nuance in what my thinking was, that originally they do a lot of food. And so but
I guess my question is, it's not the Legion that's being taxed, the facility isn't being taxed. It's the customers buying the food, whether the organization, the Women's Auxiliary is an organization within itself. They're buying the food from the organization, not from the building. So I don't understand why that would even make an impact on significant to our decision.
Again, I did not differentiate them, but when I thought that they might be differentiated, so if somebody is doing something twice a year, that's pretty temporary. I mean, it's kind of once in a while. But if they're doing it, do we go ahead and we collect from that, make that group collect because they're doing it at the Legion? That's where I see that there might be a difference.
Okay, I get
Or do we
that.
want to count up the number of days that the Legion does their meals and set the bar there?
Yeah.
That feels awkward to me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't have any problem saying that once a week is not temporary.
Mhm.
To me, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I think the discussion is, we got to draw the line somewhere. So do we draw it way away, or do you want it closer to the once a week? And I agree with you, Gary, that finding once a week and then drawing it just on the other side seems weird. Doesn't seem like it's common sense.
I think that we might need to at least keep in mind if there are restaurants that, because its business is slow at this time of year, they don't serve every night. Does that put them in a similar category to somebody that's doing it once a week?
Only if we take nonprofits out of that exemption.
Okay. Okay.
Although I did have the thought, caterers providing food for a nonprofit event or a festival.
We've
Is that
covered
just-
I think.
Is that covered, Ashley?
I'm looking right now.
We had that, I think.
Caterers are not exempt. But.
Yeah,
would
I don't
cater-
think, I don't believe that is exempt because it's, the food is being sold by the caterer.
Being sold by the caterer to a nonprofit.
And then the nonprofit is reselling the food.
Essentially, yes.
That's their fundraiser.
Yeah.
Right.
That one to me is a little more awkward.
Well, are they doing it once a week? Are
No,
they doing it, 4 times a year, seasonally?
maybe once a year.
Okay, well, then that's definitely temporary.
So it's a nonprofit reselling prepared food from a caterer
Once a year.
once a year. So
And that sounds like it's a nonprofit and it's temporary.
it is. And the actual operator, who is the proprietor of the restaurant in that case, would likely be the nonprofit and not the caterer.
Right.
So I think I understand the council's perspective on Bruce's inquiry. I think what Bruce, maybe you were saying is that you want to investigate whether or not there are separate restaurants as defined by the code, which each would have its own number of events operating out of the Legion. Is that what the inquiry is?
Not quite. Let me try to explain it better. Close. Is the Legion, the fact that the Legion has a lot of food events, is that what makes everybody that might be under them subject to collecting the tax? Or if, again, the auxiliary or the Sons of or something like that are separate entities that kind of work out of the Legion building, does
Right.
that make any difference? And maybe, from what I'm hearing, I don't know everybody agrees that that makes a difference, but it was a nuance that I had not considered until now.
It may move it
Well,
from somewhere of a weekly events to
The
slightly less than that, but
auxiliary is just a volunteer group of people who help the Legion in certain tasks.
Yeah, and if they're under the Legion,
For nonprofit.
They are,
that's,
Huh?
they're not.
I don't think so.
I think they are.
yeah, to me, that might have made a difference, but if they're not, then it's just whatever happens in the Legion.
To that, I used to actually for 1 year, I belonged to Women's Auxiliary and I just did it by saying, oh, I want to help.
Yeah,
And that was it because I belonged to the Legion at that time.
Hmm.
So it was, it had nothing to do with there were no, board meetings or, for the auxiliary. They were a group of people who got together and volunteered their services for the Legion,
okay,
help raise money.
maybe that's the answer, and so it's not worth pursuing.
We should definitely check that to see if it's accurate, because I'm just saying, this is
We do need.
what I think, but I don't know.
but yes, I'm not sure that would change
Yeah.
the context of what we're talking about.
Right.
So.
We're providing direction regarding addressing the concerns about the Legion. Have we provided direction?
Oh.
No,
I believe we have.
please go ahead then.
We've provided at least consensus that we don't believe that serving food once a week is temporary. We believe that, at least what I'm hearing the council say, is that it doesn't seem to matter, what the entity is in the Legion's infrastructure. I may be incorrect on that, but it seems to be what I'm hearing. So what I take away from this is that it sounds to me like the Legion does not qualify as an exemption. I haven't heard any language this evening to say otherwise.
I think that is accurate. I would just say the only thing that where it might come into play is if there is an auxiliary who's actually doing an event once or twice a year at the Legion. Then I could see it applying. That's where looking into it may make a difference, but it's not going to make a difference certainly on what we're talking about here for is a weekly event temporary. And I don't know if anyone wants to.
Well, there are organizations that have had their fundraisers at the Legion, but they've
Yes.
only been once or twice a year.
Yes.
Chef's Night Out,
And that's
people
temporary.
things, and those are
Yeah.
temporary because they're a couple, okay,
And those would be exempt.
right, because they
Yes.
meet both nonprofit.
And they also do, I don't know how often they're doing them now, but in the past, they've done the fish fry and the
Yeah, they're not doing that.
pancake
And-
breakfast,
So-
that sort of thing.
Well, I did it a lot. It brings it up to more like 60 times a year rather than just 52 times.
And then you had your Sunday pancake breakfast too.
Oh, right.
Right.
So yeah.
They do again.
Okay, do you have your direction now?
I think so. I didn't hear place where somebody said, okay, at this point, it's temporary. And, for example, if they have and I miss the oyster feed, but if they do the oyster feed and it's once a month, it's not exempt.
Because it's,
4 times a year.
Well, when is it? I mean, weekly is not, is bi-weekly enough of a stretch?
I think 4 times a year and under.
Okay, so it's quarterly.
I would like, very
Yeah,
objective number,
I certainly would agree with that.
Okay, so quarterly,
Census on a number.
quarterly.
right.
okay, so if, Ashley, can we do a definition that defines temporary as quarterly?
Yes, I think that will be very helpful for staff as well.
Okay.
And so that would be an ordinance that we would bring back.
So we can bring that back possibly in February.
Okay, everybody okay with that? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
And because of where we ended up on this one, I'll withdraw the suggestion to do anything with the farmer's market.
because it's
It's not temporary.
not temporary, because it needs up for
It's weekly.
It's weekly.
That would be
weekly
my suggestion.
or one quarter. Okay, gotcha.
I think it would cause a lot of problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Carve out, even though it's great for the farmer's market, and I love the farmer's market, but we have to, treat
We have to
Has
be
to be
objective,
even, yeah,
fair and objective.
yes.
Let's get used to that.
That's my favorite word.
Would still like to get an answer about Cafe Do though.
Nancy, I'll put that on my list.
Nancy, could you please repeat what the name of the?
It's Cafe Do.
It's God in French.
God, right? Cafe.
Oh, okay.
God.
I understand.
God.
Thank you.
She's got some contacts.
Yeah, right.
Mom, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Mondu. Cafe Do.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Do you think, before we completely finish this discussion, are there other things that there's issues with in terms of nonprofits that might not meet our quarterly temporary in town?
I'm not aware of any. I wasn't aware of this one until it was brought up by some.
Okay.
Public. Hear about them, we'll bring them back. But
Okay.
it's given, now that we're dividing it quarterly, I think that would set a clear line.
This is, it's new enough that I just think we need to deal with these as they come
As they
up
come.
and
Right.
just be fair and even handed. I would hope.
Okay, so moving right along, next we have a discussion about our town retreat and when we might like to have it. It's not going to be tonight.
I thought it was tonight.
Oh, I thought we got a date.
No, I don't think
No,
so.
we need.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
it would be my preference, and it's just my preference, that we wait until we have, our January and February meetings. Because every time I'm over here in City Hall, I think of another topic that we want to come up with, that I would like to make sure we're all on the same page with. And,
I like that idea.
I know we're going to spend a lot of time together in the next month, but I would still like a couple of sessions of regular and work sessions before we meet to discuss procedures and things,
So do you want to set a date for March sometime
Or the end of February.
or the end of
or
February.
the end of February?
And I don't know how we do this in a meeting setting.
February 21st.
It doesn't have to be a
Is open.
day.
No, it's just, it's more than just trying to set, 5 or 6 calendars. It's setting the room calendar and everything else. And I don't know if you have all that in front of you, Tessa, or should we just wait?
So maybe we should say that we would like to have it at the, in the last part of.
Hmm?
Oh,
Okay, anybody want to make suggestions? We can easily check the availability of the room.
Oh, are we trying to carve out a day?
Probably 2 days.
Probably two.
Usually it's 2 days.
Yeah.
Well, we just did have the session with all of us and the former counselors, and we talked about quite a bit. But does the council feel like that we need 2 days to
Well, it depends on how many times she comes to City Hall and figures it out.
Try to stay away.
Remember, we don't know what dates we're gonna be called upon to go
That's
to
true.
the settlement conference
Yeah.
in February. We have no idea.
So do we want to push it to March or do we not want to make?
We could always set a date and then change it if we have
That's
to. We can be flexible.
Oh.
So how about? It's gonna be during the day. How about if we were to select the 23rd and possibly the 24th if it's gonna go to 2 days. I kind of feel like if we plan it for 8 hours, about hour 5, we've lost.
what's the event on the 24th there?
That's planning.
Yeah.
Planning commission, but that's at night.
Yeah, that's.
Is that a,
Oh, no, on the 24th. Does that say plan review?
Oh, that's for me. That's sorry. It's this green council chamber one is your,
9 to 10, 9 to 10 AM.
Okay,
23rd, so Thursday and Friday?
Right. But not go 8 hours. On.
No, please.
Maybe like make it 10 to 3. On Thursday and then. And then maybe schedule it 10 to 3 on Friday, and if it doesn't take, if we're so good that we get it all done and.
Yeah, if you're gonna go on a Friday, I have to check my calendar to make sure. I'm just not sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right now, that sounds good to me.
yeah, I'm
So-
okay with that.
and
So we'll
I'll check it as soon as I get home and email.
Okay, so we'll schedule it for sure on Thursday, February 23rd from 10 till 3. And then wait to hear from everyone about the second day. Is that okay with city staff?
Let's double check that nobody's got anything, but I don't have any glaring conflicts.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So now I'm going to close the work session and start the special meeting. And so special meeting, we have resolution 2303 for purposes of improving increases and decreases to the budget for the herbs work supplement. And Jeff?
yeah. So this time, hopefully you got exhibit A, which is the scope of work. And then the other item that we inserted in there is in paragraph 13 to put that termination with a set time in case you guys did want to go that way and put a date certain kind of thing. Or if we wanted to extend that, we would have to come back before you guys to get your approval on that. So just let me know if you have any questions.
I thought there was one other item that was highlighted.
There is,
Change.
Over the single word,
Professional.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
professional general liability,
Actually answered the insurance question.
Okay.
to be consistent.
Yeah, and I'm not a financial expert at all, and I'm just concerned about on page 3 of Exhibit A. It has the task budget and timeline overview. You have this whole overview written out. Okay, so The chart on page 3 of Exhibit A outlines the amount of money projected to be spent this fiscal year ending June 2023 for task 1, 2, 3, and 4 at $35,000 with a contingency of $15,000. Task 5, however, is to be completed in the following fiscal year, June 23rd to June 2024, June 2023 to June 2024. I don't know, is it appropriate to budget for the next fiscal year now when we don't even have a budget for 2023, 24?
That's how Lori does these for us, like the TSP project and everything. Often we just put in that, whatever that grant amount or what that anticipated project is, whether it's a multi-year. We, like you said, often takes a lot longer than whatever, but it's held there, rolled over if we need it for the next year.
Okay, so that extra, so the money for task 5, which is $80,000 with a contingency, is a placeholder kind of?
Yeah, so exactly that 50,000, doesn't give, we won't, if they were to get to that project and we could do it in the fiscal year, then we would have it, to be able to do that. But likely it will just roll over to the next year. We will deduct that for the next.
And it doesn't work to make 2 separate budgets, one for this year and one for.
We've never done that on any one I've worked.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Other questions? One ready to make a motion?
I am, I just gotta get back there.
I will move to approve the extension or
Thank you.
contract to complete the code audit process as described in resolution 23-03.
A second?
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Tessa, roll call.
All right, Counselor Burke. Oh, yeah. Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Okay. Next, we have a good of the order. Anyone have anything for good of the order?
Well, I was here 4.5 years. And this is only the second time we were done before 7.
It's all about gin and rust.
Good at the order.
Yeah, we can blame it on.
Jen and Russ will drag these things out all the time.
Thank you, Tessa.
I do have one item. I did attend the tour of the county jail as a citizen, not as a.
Yeah, right, sure.
And it's an amazing facility. Most of the other people on the tour were not brand new elected officials. They were people that had worked in the system a long time. And after the first couple of questions that I asked, they all kind of went, "You've never been in jail." And but I mean, it really is an amazing facility.
How so?
Just, I mean, it's new, it's clean. I was very impressed by the sheriff and the corrections officer, whatever his terminology was, but it just didn't look like Alcatraz.
Is it being used now?
More modern and much more safety conscious, that they have an overall view of everything that's going on in the jail. So it'll be good. It'll be good for us not to be renting space in other areas. And there's rooms for people with mental health issues when they're being booked in. So it will be a lot better for the officers there up there too.
There's regular bathrooms to have, education for the
What was the visiting area like?
like you see on television, kind of thing. I mean, but there's many more of them. And again, it's all clean and
And telephones.
there's windows with speakers.
Okay.
in them. But
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't see any telephones.
Nobody visited you while you were there?
No, I think they wanted to lock me up. But yeah, it was, and they think they're gonna move in February.
That's the plan.
Yep. That will be an interesting task. How do you move a jail?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anything else? We're good at the order? Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
That's fast.
Let's make this a habit.